All right, so we're rolling right along. Next rule on the list, number 12, manage your emotions or they will manage you. Again, this is very important, right? Very important because I think a lot of people, they don't realize just how important this is. And my point here, it is kind of complex, to be honest, but the best way of putting it is that once you've learned to do this, you realize very quickly that the average person is very bad at this. And what do I mean by that is people let the slightest thing going wrong just ruin their day, ruin their week, right? People will let something that they have no control over that went wrong, they'll just let that just ruin their day, ruin their week, ruin whatever, right? And that's just a terrible strategy or a terrible way to live life. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm perfect or I've mastered this. I mean, I still struggle with this, but the key point is to have that self-awareness that when these situations come up, that you think to yourself right away, it's like, I couldn't have controlled that, right? I had no way of knowing that was going to come. Sometimes you do, which again, I think you need to differentiate those situations because if it was conceivable to have avoided that issue, then yeah, you definitely need to figure that out and get it better next time. But a lot of times, I mean, let's say, you get stuck in an accident, you're late for work. A lot of people say, oh yeah, you should just be early, but it's like, it's still, now if you're someone who's perpetually late, I think it's different. But if it's a once in a, very rare thing, yeah, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, right? I mean, is it going to do anything by yelling at them, by honking at them? Like, no, it's really not, right? Someone treats you badly for no reason. Chances are there's not a whole lot you could do, right? Again, you get an unexpected bill, right? I mean, you should have savings, right? You should have a good little savings for an emergency fund, right? Definitely need that. But let's say you do have it. Well, yeah, you couldn't have controlled that. I mean, stuff's going to break down. Stuff's going to need to be replaced, right? And again, you're going to hurt yourself every now and then, right? You're going to have whatever, you name it, right? Bad things will happen, right? The key is to be able to figure out, okay, when this bad thing happens, how am I going to react? Am I going to react? Am I going to look for the positives? Or am I going to look for the negatives, right? And another good way of looking at it is you need to think to yourself, it's like, is this situation still going to be bothering me tomorrow? Okay, maybe. Is it going to be bothering me next week? Probably not. Is it going to be bothering me a month from now? Very unlikely. And that's another good way of thinking about it. It's like, yeah, I mean, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you're probably not even going to remember it a week from now or a month from now for sure, right? So why would you get all up in arms about it, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? If slightest thing goes wrong at work, like there's a lot of people that just, yeah, they're just off the hook, right? That their whole day's ruined, their whole week's ruined, right? I mean, I'm in an industry where I see this a lot. I mean, slightest thing goes wrong with someone, something that it's going to happen at some point, right? Something goes wrong, it's an unexpected bill, and people just freak out. They just can't handle themselves, right? I mean, $1,000 to some people, like unexpected $1,000 bills, like it's going to completely destroy their life. It's like, probably isn't. And if you're in the position that it is, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, and this is something that I kind of appreciate in doing what I do, and that I get to see this stuff, and I get to think to myself all the time. It's like, I'm going to do whatever I can to not put myself in the shoes of the other person at the other end there. I'm not saying they're always bad people by any means. Most of the time they're not. But again, and this is another thing too, like when you see this stuff in other people, like that's another good way of thinking about it. It's like when you see these situations with other people, it's like, okay, well, that's how I would have handled that, right? And a lot of times you end up having to deal with the same situation. Again, I'm also seeing this kind of stuff all the time to where, you see someone else who's doing the same thing, dealing with the same kinds of people, and they're like, yeah, I probably would have handled that a little differently. And then inevitably the situation comes up, and sure enough, you handle it a little bit better. So again, emotions are always going to be something that's going to be hard to deal with. but you need to learn how to control them, right? You really need to learn how to control them, because if you don't, they're going to destroy you, right? They will destroy you. And again, if you look at the people that are whatever they are, the most successful, and you name it, again, they can manage those emotions very well. I mean, look at people that have a bad day. They can bounce back again tomorrow. I mean, look at in sports, how you see some of these guys that make a really bad play, a really bad decision in front of millions of people, and they're out there next shift, next play, whatever it is, and they're doing just fine, right? And again, if they can do it, why can't you do it? At least just to obviously it's not on the same scale, but again, why can't you do it, right? So again, learning to manage. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, right? I'm not an expert. I mean, I would look into some of these experts and read up. But again, you got to learn to manage your emotions. And again, a good way of going about it also is to figure out things that work specifically for you. Because some people, it's like, oh, I meditate. It's like it never worked for me. Never worked for me. Um, the gym, going for walks, stuff like that, that works really good for me. Some people that might not work. Some people, maybe it's reading, right? Again, you got to try stuff. You got to practice different strategies, and you got to be willing to suffer a little bit. Just a lot of people, they try something once, didn't work. I'm just going to abandon it, right? It's like that. I wouldn't do that, right? I really wouldn't do that. But you got to do something, right? You got to do something. And the other big thing you got to realize and understand is that you're always going to be dealing with challenges, right? You're always going to be dealing with challenges. You're always going to be dealing with emotions. The best way of going about it is just deal with it, right? Tell yourself on a daily basis. This is something that I do. Again, you're always going to be dealing with challenges. You're always going to have unexpected problems coming up. You're going to have to be resilient. You might as well just get used to it, right? That's my thought process, right? I'd like to hear other people's thought processes as well. I'm going to leave it there. If you liked the video, hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for